Hi there, my name is Faye and I'm the community manager over at HitSense. We are so excited to have you here for the Big Adventure events where we're featuring over 100 demos and countless more games from developers across the world. We're meeting developers from Peru, Finland, Spain, Germany, Lithuania, Canada, Egypt, Pakistan, Bulgaria, South Africa, and so much more. And this wouldn't be possible without fans of adventure like you. If you haven't joined our Discord server already, I highly encourage you pop on in because we have game keys to give away, dev live Q&As, a mystery adventure game, and so much more. Personally, I'm really proud of the Pick Your Path mystery adventure game we've been playing because I wrote it myself, and it's been really fun to feature characters from different games featured in the event this year. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you to some of the developers behind games featured in the event this year, but I don't want you to miss out on my coworkers' amazing videos too. Sarah, our influencer relations manager, is sharing about 30 dev interviews in her video, along with a bunch of Steam keys that you might want to grab. Our producer Ian is going to give you an exclusive look at some chats we had with guests like David Browick, creator of the Diablo franchise, Jeff Morris, who's worked on titles at LucasArts, Crystal Dynamics, and Epic Games, Cyrus Namadi, who you might know as the lead writer for June's Journey and Tropicats Faruga, as well as a voice actor in Supergiant's Hades, and a few other guests maybe, who knows. With that being said, I'm super excited to introduce you to some devs behind games like Warp Frontier, Brock the Investigator, Prim, Who Is He, Let Me Out, and so many more. They're going to share some details on how they made their games, any difficulties they had on their journey, and any other projects they might be working on too. I'll see you in the Discord and happy adventuring!
Hello， 大家好，这里是 Starry， 我是 Starry 的制作人于天，很高兴能参加这个 Big Adventure Event， 中文名叫巨大的冒险游戏节。Starry 是2018年成立的，那我们成立之初是由我和 Rick 2名团队成员，我们两人从18年开始就一起制作8月号，然后一直到了现在2021年年末，这个团队的第一款作品才算是接近完成了。我们构想了一艘叫做8月号的船，那这艘船上的船员饲养了一批神奇的生物，叫做飞豚。飞豚会去到人类世界，将死后人类的灵魂带到这艘船上。这些人类的灵魂成为船上的乘客之后，会在船员的带领下经历2天1夜的一场神奇的梦幻之旅。在这趟旅程的途中，船员会把他们带到记忆工厂，在那里将他们的记忆提取出来，然后使他们忘掉前世的一切，再带领他们参加一场盛大的泪山嘉年华。参加完泪山嘉年华之后，这些灵魂就会再度的被送回人类世界，来开启他们下一段人生。那么8月号的故事主要围绕着几名登船的乘客来展开的。那具体他们会发生一些什么精彩又令人意外的情节呢？就请大家期待游戏正式发售，自己去探索吧。我们将游戏的故事拆成了一段一段的舞台，那每一个舞台代表着游戏里边的故事片段。玩家在部分舞台当中需要完成舞台内的任务，才可以推动这个故事的进行。但是完成任务需要做什么呢？如果说你只是顺着这个故事走下去的话，那么往往这个任务要么经历失败，要么就是陷入死胡同无法完成。此时需要玩家做的是挖掘剧情当中的细微的线索，然后去想象在这个故事的前段，在过去有什么是可以做的事情，有什么是可以改变的历史，能够让我们的角色在当下完成他所面临的任务和挑战。那么我们其实设定了这么一个架空的舞台，这个舞台是位于生与死之间的一个缝隙里边。如果玩了游戏的话，大家能看到那一些登上8月号的乘客，他们处在一个很神奇的状态。这个状态下，首先他们是死掉了，那已经是跟上辈子进行过告别，但是呢，又没有完全与上辈子割离，毕竟他们还保留着之前的记忆嘛。那么我想这些人物，他们应该会有非常多的遗憾，或者非常多的思念的情绪还在自己身上，但是8月号的规则又不允许他们将这一些思念也好、感情也好、遗憾也好，带着前往下个辈子。那他们的真正的任务是需要在这艘船上将过去的一切给割舍掉。那么这些主角也会有各种不同的反应，有的可能比较洒脱，但有的呢又是对过去念念不忘，他们可能会顺从，可能会反抗，有形形色色的人们出现在8月号上。我们也希望玩家看到他们的故事之后，能够想一想，我们现在作为一个活着的人，在现实的生活当中，有没有跟他们类似的这种没有表达的感情，没有实现的目标，没有弥补的遗憾。最终还是希望大家能够在可能的情况下，在此生能够让自己的生命更加圆满，而不要将遗憾带上8月号。这就是我们最想表达的东西。这款游戏的起源是我同我家人所共同经历的一个小故事。我现在是一个3口之家，我是一位丈夫，也是一位父亲。那在几年前，我带我和自己的妻子还有女儿一起去一个海洋公园，然后在那个纪念品商店里边，就看到里面走来一对夫妇，然后他们看到我女儿活蹦乱跳的样子，就突然叫住了我，就说看到她好像看到了自己 远去的小孩的身影。那他们的这一句话一下子就触动了我。那我的心想就是说，可能真的存在有那么一个世界吧，就那个世界里边的，可能是已经离开现实世界的人，还停留在那个地方，然后也许他们有机会重新回到现实，回到自己亲人的身边，来不管是看他们也好，看他们一眼也好，还是给他们留下一点一点，留下一些心里话也好。我的理解是，巴别号的美术风格也好，剧情风格也好，甚至包括玩法、音乐这些所有的加起来，我认为他们最终是需要能够统一的呈现巴别号的整体的概念。因此，我希望这里边的各个环节，特别是美术，并不要脱离这个故事和这个主题，因此才设立了一个这样看起来会比较温暖的、比较童话般的画风。那我们其实是希望通过这种风格来让玩家在游戏过程当中体验到一种轻松诙谐和有童趣的感受，并不希望玩家是以一种非常沉重的心态来看待这一个生死的故事，而是希望玩家在这个轻松欢乐的过程当中就玩好这个游戏，然后再留一些余味就好了。大家可以看一看我头上的这几个东西，不知道是否特别熟悉？这个有没有很像故事当中的那个小女孩雷克呀？这个是船上的船员的装扮，然后再看这个人物呢，目前还没登场，所以我暂时保密，他是谁我就不说了，大家可以以后玩到游戏里面去找一找。其实最早是我给我自己家里的我和我的妻子还有我的小孩画了3个图片，我们当时出去旅游嘛，就想到处拍照，就拿这3个图片拍照，然后后来巴别号的风格也就从这3个角色身上就这样子延展开了。这我觉得是蛮好玩的事情，不知道有没有机会做成周边。问题差不多就是这些了。那希望我的废话没有让大家感到昏昏欲睡。那就今天就先到这里吧，谢谢大家，再见。
Hi there, we're Anton and Alexis, and Sephiroth, our CCO, Chief Cat Officer, and we're an indie game dev studio called Clockwork Pepper. Our CCO might have to run to a meeting, so yeah, he's gone.
We're working on A Peculiar Adventure on Bast, a game where you follow 2 colorful heroes from opposite sides of the continent as they embark on a point-and-click adventure of their lives. Crazy gadgets, charismatic characters, and a hint of the uncanny. You'll find it all in a beautifully hand-drawn steampunk world of Bast.
We've got background in illustration and computer programming, and we've previously released a few smaller games. But The Peculiar Adventure on Bast is our most ambitious project, and we would love to share it with the world. It combines our passion for puzzles, for adventure, for the steampunk aesthetic, and we wanted to make it as fun to play as it is beautiful to look at.
We love all old-school adventure games such as Monkey's Island, Broken Sword, or Grim Fandango. We're also big fans of Machinarium's adorable robots, of the room's twisty puzzles, and the eerie atmosphere of the Rusty Lake Hotel. From the upcoming games, we've played the demos of Prim and Slender Threads, and they both look amazing, and we just can't wait to play them once they're out.
While working on the game, we had to learn a lot on the job, and that meant going through different variations and trial and error. In terms of the style, for example, we went through 3 different options before we settled on the art style that you can see now. Another thing we really struggled with was actually naming characters and places. Like, I'm not sure if anyone else finds naming so hard. It's very hard.
We're building our game on Unity, and while we haven't had any major setbacks, we've come to some realizations that have caused some redesigns. Let's make it sound intentional and positive and call it iterative progress. You can wishlist our game now on Steam, and we'll be releasing it on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And then, see you on Bast!
A Trail of Ooze is a point-and-click adventure about a sarcastic Swedish cow called Majros on a mission to save her farmer. On her adventure, Majros unravels conspiracies, battles social injustices, and comes face to face with environmental disaster. Forced to leave her safe bubble on the farm, Majros learns that no cow or story is only black and white, and that she cannot make it alone against the insidious agrochemical corporation Crop Corp. On the team, we have myself, Clara. I do anything that doesn't require art or music skills. And then we have Johanna Wunderlich from Germany. She has the same role as me, so together we share the workload of writing the story, the puzzles, and also the business side of running a company. Then we have Maria Beckvar from Northern Ireland, that is our lead artist, and Marcus Kaczmarek from Sweden doing all the music and sound effects. Have you ever been involved with other projects in the past? No, we have not. This is our first gaming venture together and we are really looking forward to it. What is your game set out to achieve? The game is mainly here to entertain, and we hope that it will be polished enough to measure up to the old and new classics of the genre. But we also like to throw in Easter eggs to other games, as well as breaking the fourth wall. What other games were inspirations for your own? Well, obviously we are heavily influenced by some of our own favorites of the genre. For me, the biggest inspiration of puzzle style and humor is for sure Dave the Tentacle. What has been the most difficult aspect of creating your game? The hardest part for sure was setting on a style. We spent a lot of time on that before we settled on what we have now. Our favorite retro adventure games, it's Dave the Tentacle for me. Johanna, she really loves the Deponia series, and Maria's favorite is the Broken Sword series. And Marcus's all-time favorite is Monkey Island, which I think we can all agree on is a great game. What platforms will your game exist on? Right now it's only for PC, for Windows and Mac, so you can get the demo on Steam of course and itch. So that's the only play feedback we have had so far. It has been a lot of positive feedback, which we are really excited about, and then also some suggestions and ideas that we want to throw in the full game. What is another adventure game you're really excited to play? And there are quite a few, but on the top of my head, it's Prim, Justin Wack, Lucid Dreaming, and also Cleo, which just came out. So I'm really excited to try those. What engine is your game built on? Our game is built on Unity and Adventure Creator. It has been pretty straightforward so far, but I'm having a lot of issues trying to get the opening cutscene to play on Linux. So if anyone has any input on that, just drop me a DM because I can't get it to work. Thank you.
A Twisted Tale is a humorous point-and-click adventure influenced by all the old masterpieces of the golden point-and-click times. It's about Rio, who gets with a portal into a twisted world by using a Rubik's Cube. On her attempt to get back, she will visit different worlds and settings and meet a lot of crazy characters, like the depressive Beth, who will accompany her across the game. A Twisted Tale is my personal love letters to point-and-click adventures. The old classics do not only set the tone of the game, but are a significant part of the story.
A diamond ring. Wow, that's really a big diamond.
Real and real cursed.
In fact, the existence of all those point-and-click adventures is a real part of the storyline and the world of A Twisted Tale.
Hey, a coin.
The game is being developed by myself as a solo dev and comes with full voiceover in German and English. And who knows, maybe it will be possible to realize it in more languages. Who is in your team? That's only me! I write the story, dialogues, quests, I draw the backgrounds, characters and animations, which are made in classical frame-by-frame style.
That sounds impressive.
And develop the game, of course. And hey, if you write an email or a message on Twitter, you will be talking to me directly. That's the whole marketing team. But seriously, I'm really grateful to have the support of very talented people who helped me with the sound effects, music, voiceover and localization.
A wooden tripod.
In fact, the whole indie adventure game dev scene is very supportive and helpful. It's so great to always have someone for nerdy talks about game development and who helps out if you get stuck somewhere. Have you been involved with other projects in the past? Now it's my very first game. When I build a Twisted Tale, I feel like I'm back in the time when I was a teenager. And I want to give that to every player. A Twisted Tale will be a game that feels like what you remember of the games of the 90s era style. It should spawn a lot of feelings from the heart of every classical adventure fan. And this goes into every decision I make about the game.
Boxes. No labels.
Do not touch!
I want them to have the feeling of playing a classic game that is still very modern. Your own portal into the 90s. What other games were inspirations for your own? Monkey Island 3, Toonstruck, Orienburger, Broken Sword, King's Quest, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, and many more. What been the most difficult aspect of creating your game? Animations. I never did animations before, especially not frame by frame, and it's surprising that something looking so naturally is so incredibly complicated to create. You see movements every day, everywhere, but it's really complicated to recreate them in drawings. For me, that's definitely the most complicated aspect in building that game. I love Monkey Island, I love Broken Sword, I love Black Mirror, I love Toonstruck and Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. Because you could play a woman, what was exceptional for that time, and because indie is just cool. What engine is your game built in? It's built with Visionaire Studio with a lot of additional Lua script. My major technical hurdle comes from the fact that I give my voice actors a lot of freedom to interpret their characters. Because of this, they sound more authentic. But I had the effect that because of that, the emotions of the characters were particularly different. So I did not only have to switch the audio files and text, but also had to adapt the animations for each language. This is technically challenging because it's unusual in localization.
I'll, look around some more.
If you must. But please, don't touch anything! We only look with our eyes, not our hands.
What's another adventure game you're excited to play? Prim? Lucy's Dreaming? Lacuna, I played that and it's great. A Trial of Ooze? Intruder in Anticonia.
Hello, my name is Vladimir Beletsky and I'm a game designer and writer on Black Book, a game about sorcerers, demons and spirits set in late 19th century of Russian Empire. This is a dark RPG adventure in which you take a role of a young witch trying to save her beloved one. Black Book features a deck-building gameplay inspired by Slay the Spire and Thronebreaker. The most difficult task while developing the game was to find a working formula. We created several prototypes trying to find the one that works, and we hope that we finally found one. The game was created by a small indie team of 5 people from all over Russia working remotely. In the past, the core of the team created the game called The Mooseman, based on authentic Finno-Ugric mythology. We hope that our game is not only fun to play, but also educational, and by playing the game, the players can learn something new about the often unknown lore of Slavic culture. My favorite retro adventure game is Quest for Glory by Lorian Cole and Corey Cole. This game features a mix of adventure and RPG, as well as our game, and I think that this type of gameplay very well conveys the spirit of tabletop RPGs. Our game is available both on PC and consoles. In the end, I want to thank the organizers of the event, and I want to wish good luck to all fellow developers of adventure game on this festival.
Hello, my name is Fabrice Breton. I am a French developer. I'm 37-year-old and I am mostly a solo game developer. My first game was Demetrius, the Big Cynical Adventure, which I released in 2016. And I have ported it to many platforms, including PC, consoles, and mobile. And after that, I have ported 3 games from another developer, Diabolical Mind. Although I'm doing most of the work myself, I've been working on this for almost 6 years now, but I have help from various artists. My new adventure game is named Brock the Investigator, and it's a mix of beat 'em up and point and click, which is quite innovative. And it's inspired by cartoons from the early 90s. The game was kickstarted in 1 year ago, and it was very successful with more than 1,000 backers. With Brock, I'm trying to make a game very unique, something that stands out from the crowd. It's the only adventure game where you can hit any NPC characters at any time in the rooms and getting various results. It is a very long adventure with many choices leading to multiple endings. It's a very big adventure with plot twists. Just to give you an idea, the game has 23,000 lines of voice acting, which is a ton. The story takes place in a world where humans have been replaced by animals. It is a dystopian universe, and the rich live under a dome, whereas the poor live outside of it in harsh conditions. So how do I mix up beat 'em up with point and click? Well, they're linked by the story. At times you'll have the option to fight. Most of the time you don't have to fight. You can actually solve puzzles in various ways. Sometimes you'll have to kick the butt of an enemy or robot, for example. Or you can find an alternative way by using items, combining them, and etc. You don't have to worry about losing the relaxed mode if you are not used to action, so you can skip fights whenever you need. In hard mode, the enemies will be much more cunning. They will try anything to reach you, to hit you. If you suck at puzzles, because even though they are your typical type in point and clicks, they are very logical, and at the same time you can get hints through little ads that are scattered in the rooms and which you have to find. One of the challenging parts of making this game is making it playable with many different types of controllers, because on PC you can use a keyboard and mouse, which is obviously the favorite way to play a point and click. But at the same time, this type of control isn't suitable normally for beat 'em up, so I had to make efforts to make sure it also works for the fighting parts. The video game inspirations are, for example, a Little Big Adventure, which is another dystopic world with cute animals, and you can switch mode at any time, so it reminds a lot of this one. The Street of Rage series, and especially the second one, because I have taken inspiration from this one for the fights gameplay. I intend to release it on PC, especially on Steam and GOG next year. A prologue of the game is free on Steam and GOG, and it has super well been received so far. 97% rating positive on Steam. I hope it will allow you to see what makes this game so special. Anticipate the full release soon. Thank you.
Hi guys.
Hi
We
guys.
are developers from Artillery Studio working on point-and-click adventure game Katyy in Meow Meow Land. This is
My name is Marek, this is Gordana, and we want to introduce you to our game.
We are working on Katyy in Meow Meow Land game, which is point-and-click adventure game set in a bizarre world of cats and many magical and crazy characters, creatures. Katyy is based on Alice in Wonderland story. So basically, she follows a cat, in this case not a rabbit, in her garden, and she falls through the hole into the bizarre world. And your task in this game as a player is to get her back home by solving a lot of crazy and weird puzzles.
My favorite adventure games are also an inspiration for Katyy in Memoryland. It isn't a classical neighborhood, of course. Goblins series, and last but not least, the Summers from Amanita Studio. Artillery was founded by me and my colleague Martin Solgaj, who is coder. We have more than 20 years of experience in game developing. I was working for Illusion Softworks and in Cauldron, which are local studios here in Slovakia and Czech Republic. And we also developed some education games and browser-based RPG strategy in Korea. Our team has 6 members.
Well, Marek is the head and art director of actually everything. I'm the second most important member of the team. I'm working as an animator, and we have other 4 guys, 2 coders and 2 guys who work as a sound and music designers, which is also an important aspect of the game.
How I find all these people, it's a very long story for each of them. So. Most difficult aspect of the game was technical issues and funding.
Well, the art of Katyy was inspired by illustrations from old books, which Marek read as a child.
Katyy is basically an animated child book. I don't want to say it only the game for kids. It's also for adults, but I'm trying to hit like this kind of nostalgia.
We wanted to mention that very important part of Katyy is the visual part, the art and the audio. So we were basically creating an animated story which is playable and enjoyable. And yeah, that's it.
Cut. Katyy will be published on Steam, on Nintendo Switch, on Xbox and PlayStations, all of these platforms, and it will be released, we hope, for March 2022, but maybe it will be April or May, we are not sure right now, but definitely in a few months. So thank you guys, and watch our stream. We will be playing game with one of my friends, and
there
you
will be
see
some
more.
new levels.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye guys.
Hi guys, I'm Gemma from Superlumen, an indie dev studio from Spain, and we are developing The Solatium. The Solatium is a point-and-click graphic adventure based on Lovecraft mythos. It is full of puzzles and riddles that will have to be solved to advance, leading the player to multiple endings. Every decision they make will determine their path and their ending. The player will investigate and solve mysterious events while exploring a Lovecraftian universe in order to find who is behind all the madness in-game. It incorporates really interesting features so the player can live a unique experience while playing the game, such as real settings, ambisonic sound, a Lovecraftian narrative, and hyper-realistic graphic, enriching the gaming experience. But this is not our first project. It was Sanatorium, published for most VR platforms. It was the project that made us think about developing a bigger game, the Solatium. With the Solatium, we want to bring the old classic adventures to the present, with an original and modern identity, but with keeping their classic essence. The Solatium aims to reach a large number of people around the world, both fans of Lovecraft and graphic adventures, with the prospect of developing a second part in the future. Our main inspirations are the old graphic adventure from 80s and 90s, such as Myst or Lost in Time, but also some other modern games like Heavy Rain or even Call of the Sea. The Solatium will be available on PC, Mac, consoles and VR devices. The game is built in Unreal Engine 4, so to develop the VR and non-VR version at the same time is quite challenging. Although developing a game is amazing, it is something difficult as well. It is full of decisions. I think that the most difficult is to visualize how the decisions you take in the present are going to affect the developing in the future. And also, don't lose the focus on the goal and what you want to achieve with that decision. About our favorite retro adventure game, we grew up playing classics like Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, Sam & Max. I don't know, if I have to choose one, I would say Monkey Island. The graphics, the story, the humor, it is a perfect game and so fun to play. I love the Monkey Island saga. It is, for me, it's perfect. As a graphic adventure fans, there are a lot of great adventures games coming next year. We are really waiting to play Lovecraft Tales from Red Dead Studio, Somerville from Jumpship, The Last Night from Odd Tales, or A Plague Tale Requiem, a Sobo studio. And that's it. Add the Solatium please to your wishlist and play the demo. It's for free on Steam. We're looking forward to your feedback. Bye!
Hi, my name is Xenia and I'm developing a game called Flawless Abbey. We have really small studio of 3 people, including me. I work on game design, texture, script, level design and also write music. My friend Danya makes models, animations, he's engaged in level design and also he makes effects. By the way, we met at HSE Art and Design School. We finished game design classes together. My second friend Dima is engaged in programming. We met at a game jam. And together we call ourselves Badhead Games. Flawless Abbey is our debut project, except for games that we made for game jams and educational ones. This game is inspired by David Ridden's works, such as the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide, as well as Milorad Pavic's book, The Hazard Dictionary, highly recommended. Our goal is to make daring game with a touching, mysterious story and tons of exciting moments. Not just an adventure, but an experimental, incredible, unexpected adventure. So, what is this game? You'll find yourself in a huge labyrinth tower filled with dolls. And to get out, you need to go up to the top floor to meet the tower's owner, the Abyss, who turns out to be in love with you. We have a cool musical puzzle, which is a rotating log that needs to be twisted in the right place. And Flawless Abbey has another great feature. All textures in the game are hand-painted in watercolor. This is a really interesting process, by the way. First, Dani makes model with UV map, then I redraw parts of this UV on watercolor paper, and then I draw the rest of the texture. Then I scan it and made some adjustments in the editor to match my texture with the existing UV map. Then I adjust colors, brightness, contrast, and create the material in Unreal Engine 4 and get beautiful watercolor texture in the game. This feature is also really cool because our game will be released not only on PC and consoles but also in VR. And based on early tests, this is a very beautiful experience. So you can check out our videos about the game and my watercolor drawing videos and our social media. Thank you and bye!
Hey folks, we're Mr. Morris Game Studio. I'm Mr. Morris and we are working on our first major title, Haiku the Robot, a cute exploration adventure game set in a post-apocalyptic world where humans no longer exist. Ever since I was a kid, I love playing games with a large open world. Games where if you wanted to go down a specific path, the game just let you. So with Haiku, we want to recreate that special feeling of exploring on your own terms and creating your own proper adventure. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to the team. As you can probably tell, I'm the only person working on the game, but luckily I do have someone to help me with the audio. I spend most of my days swapping between Unity Game Engine, where the game's being built, and Sprite, which is a pretty nifty pixel art tool. One of the biggest challenges with being a solo developer is that I have to do everything, from small artistic details to big picture story stuff. Don't get me wrong though, I enjoy working on all the parts of the game, but sometimes it does get a little overwhelming. Other than that, I really enjoy building Haiku's world, creating multiple different paths for players to take, and then populating it all with all sorts of curious machines and robots. Now, one of the most obvious inspirations from modern titles is Hollow Knight, and for good reason. I fell in love with the world of Hallownest and its inhabitants, and I thoroughly enjoyed exploring every nook and cranny that game had to offer. Older titles such as the original Pokemon series on Game Boy also had a strong influence on Haiku. Traveling around, talking to townsfolk, learning about the world are themes you encounter frequently in our game. Game Boy Color games in general have been the main source of inspiration for Haiku's art direction, a minimalistic palette with beautiful colors that really set the tone of this mechanical world.
Jordan, what's your favorite adventure game you're looking forward to play?
Silk Town? Well, that's it for today folks. Thank you for watching, and just so you know, Haiku the Robot will be available on Steam, PC and Mac, and the Nintendo Switch later this year.
Hi, my name is Jakub, and I'm the founder and creative director behind Headliner Nova News. It's a game about manipulating the news and seeing how it affects the society around you. It's a bit like Papers, Please meets a visual novel. So every day as a news editor, you get a stack of articles, you get to decide what gets published and what does not, and then you walk through the city, you see how it changes day to day, different events will occur, and you also get to interact and meet 4 main characters, learn about their life, their stories, and see how your decisions affect their life. I think the most interesting thing about the game is that it kind of aged like milk/wine, in the sense that the game opens up with an outbreak of a pandemic. It talks about the rise of a demagogue politicians, it talks about police brutality, civil unrest, rioting, and it released in 2018. Before COVID, before a lot of the events like Black Lives Matter, and it was really eerie and weird kind of watching the past 2 years different events unfold, and also how a lot of the public reacted to things that in my game I felt were a bit hyperbolic, and that some players even said the game was too extreme and polarizing, and then kind of watching how things unfolded the past 2 years has been weird, creepy, a little disappointing. I did not intend the game to be in any way a prediction of things, but you know, here we are. So the idea for the game came from actually my friend Matt. We're just hanging out, drinking some beers, and he pitched me an idea. Hey, how about a game where you manipulate the news? And kind of started like tossing ideas around. And initially it was more of an action adventure game where you're kind of trying to submit articles as quickly as possible and then rush home before the curfew sets in. But over development, it kind of evolved more into like a narrative and a series game. I definitely started following more like mainstream media and different social media and seeing kind of how different topics were discussed, different trends. At one point, I even attended a journalism conference in Boston. So it's definitely a topic that I personally grew to care about a lot. My own degree, my master's, is in a comparative ethnic conflict, which is a bit of ethnic studies mixed with politics, mixed with international relations. So I've always been interested in like sociological, political ideas and the division we see in society, especially under the influence of media and social media. So it definitely reflects in the games that I make. Anyway, hope this intrigues you a little bit, and the game is right now on sale as part of the event, so I hope you enjoy it. Bye!
Hi, I'm Larto. I'm the creative director of Random Potion. We're a small game company from Finland. We are making a game called Ignis Universia, Awakening of the Erudite Empress. It's a mix of JRPG and visual novel in a colorful 3D world. It's a wholesome, if a bit sarcastic, story of 4 heroines about to save the world again. And to answer the most important question of all, chosen by whom and why are they not doing it by themselves? It's a turn-based game with a lot of depth in the battle system and a lot of cute summons. And it will be out for PC later this year. So we are a 5-person team. I'm the creative director, so basically I'm the writer and the designer in the game. Then we have Jaakko, who is our programmer, Katyy, our producer, and our graphic artist team, Ellie and Sofia. Before we started working on Ignis Universia Awakening of the Erudite Empress, our company made a game called Book of Heroes. It was a game based on the German tabletop role-playing game The Dark Eye, released in summer 2020. A bit before that, I and some friends had made this free game called Ignis Universia Chosen Sister Saga that was done during Ludum Dare in 2019, and it got pretty good reviews, so we started thinking of making a sequel or something with the same characters and same world. But before that we also released the larger, more polished version of the game in Steam at the end of 2020. I've also worked on about over 15 games, many of them also role-playing games, such as Rhineland's Hammer of Thor for iOS back over 10 years ago, Trulon, Shadow Engine, Knights of Pen and Paper 2, and even Puzzle Quest way back before smartphones. The other important thing is accessibility, so the game is 100% turn-based. So unlike many, we won't have any mini-games that suddenly demand reflexes or some special attacks that need good timing, although the game is going to be 100% turn-based. We are coming to Kickstarter in February 2022. Favorite retro adventure game is, well, it's always hard to pick one, but I have to say probably Gabriel Knight, the first one, because that's one I have played through several times, maybe 4 or 5 times at least. But out of the newer games, if we talk about retro games, like newer games that are sharing the older aesthetic, maybe Ratchet Eyes Unavowed was something that I was really into and liked a lot. I like a lot of budget eye games, but I think that's definitely their masterpiece so far. And of the really retro game, really retro style, Heroines Quest, a free game that's done in the style of Westfall Glory games, has been one of my favorites from a few years back. And of the upcoming games that I'm really interested in, excited to play, is definitely Katyy. I've been following the project for several years now and also backed it on Kickstarter, and it's coming out really soon and I'm really excited to play it finally. And the other is Incantamentum, that looks really nice, old school, and I really like the atmosphere in the game. Terabots, different pixel art style, and of course Crimson Diamond with its EGA style art and really interesting sounding storyline.
Hello everyone, we are Ruben and Silvia, the developers of Intruder in Antiquonia. Intruder in Antiquonia is a 2D point-and-click adventure game set in a disconcerting town that dislikes the internet. You wake up with amnesia after being found unconscious by the road leading to Antiquonia. Your first objective is to find out who you are and how you got there by following a series of clues hiding around the peculiar town. Intruder in Antiquonia follows classic point-and-click gameplay mechanics, using high-resolution graphics and a modern one-click interface. The puzzles are deeply integrated into the story, the characters have their own motivations, and the world is full of beautiful corners worth exploring.
The core of the studio consists of Silvia and me. Silvia is a producer and I am a software engineer. Being a small studio, we naturally wear many hats. So we have to handle marketing, recruiting, game design, and so on. The list of collaborators is too long to list in this short video, but we work with 13 freelance artists from many different countries who help us with script, graphics, sound and PR, just to name a few.
We started making games long before we came up with a name for the studio. Our first game was Xenia, was released back in 2011 as a completely free puzzle game from Android. A few years later, in 2017, we worked on our first point-and-click adventure game, Quantum Derail. And later, in 2020, we released another puzzle game from Android, Star Balloon, this time already under the label of Aruma Studios.
When I was 8 years old, I fell in love with the TheBAE of Crime. That's a video game inspired by the book The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. It was released here in Spain. That was my first adventure game. I played it on my Amstrad CPC 464. And a bit later I love the characters from Monkey Island, the story of Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, and the art of the dig. Those are also very old games that I played when I still had plenty of time to try everything.
Back when we were developing Quantum Derail, game dev was just a hobby, and Ruben wanted to develop our own engine.
I have always loved understanding how everything works under the hood, and as a software engineer I found that super fun. Now that we are doing this professionally, I looked into other options and I still decided to go with our own engine because we think that it has more pros than cons.
Thank you for your time, enjoy our demo and see you on Steam. Bye!
Hello, my name is Dante and I am the developer of Big Boot Studios, and I want to introduce you to our new game, John's Tombstone. This is a game where you can drive inside a dream, explore one of Saturn's moons, and discover the afterlife. John Tombstone is a walking simulator, a story split in 3 chapters, each one very different from the other. This is also a digital eulogy to my dad. I hope you see the trailer and check it out. So, moving on to the questions. Who is on your team? Well, me, myself, and I, and the voices in my head too, yeah. Have you been involved with other projects in the past? Yeah, several. The ones that got more attention was Smithy Wars, that it's already on Steam. It's an idle crafting adventure game. I've also made a Materia X Beta. It's still an alpha. It's a space sim. And well, I've made several games that are already on the internet somewhere else. So, what does your game set out to achieve? Well, frankly, idealistically, yeah, I want to be the next What Remains of Edith Finch or the next Outer Wilds. That's just a long shot. I mean, those games are terribly good, well, if you play them, you know what I mean. Failing that, well, I'd settle for enough money to work on my next project, you know, yeah, just enough money to eat and make games. Yeah, that's the dream. So, what other games were inspirations for your own? Well, as I said, What Remains of Edith Finch, Outer Wilds, those two were very great inspirations. Also, Untold Stories, because they use very accurately the use of chapters, you know. Each chapter is separated, but they tell a story within them all. It's pretty good, actually. So, let's see. What's been the most difficult aspect of creating your game? The most difficult decision? Well, the game per se is a tribute, right, to my dad and a digital eulogy. So I wanted to make it interesting, right? Because nobody just wants to hear the story of some random dude. So I've added a lot of science fiction, abstractionism. It has very interesting stories in it. It still also has a dash of real life. So also it's been a problem to know how much to show and how much to withhold from the story so that everyone can relate to the game, you know? Whether you lost a father, a mother, or even an aunt, this game should be relatable to them. So what's your favorite retro adventure game? And that's gonna be the Mario Bros. It's the first game I ever played. Frankly, it aged like fine wine, you know what I mean. And well, if I may skip a modern generation and not go too retro, I'd say Metal Gear 1 for PlayStation 1. It's terribly good. Everything for Kojima does is incredible. So, what platforms will your game exist on? Have you seen a certain platform's player base respond particularly positively to your game? It's right now it's only on. It's going to be on PC. It's not out yet, but yeah, we'll see eventually if we are going to go to another consoles or not. So what's another adventure game you're excited to play? Well, I love my time at Portia, so I'd really like to check out my time at Sandrock. I've also had Escape the Loop, which seems to be some gameplay similar to Outer Wilds, or so it seems. And Starfield from Bethesda is also looking really good. So, what engine is your game built on? Any major technical hurdles? Well, it's on Unity and it doesn't have any major problem. Unity is pretty good actually. There is one problem, and that's the new HDRP pipeline, which is Unity's new lighting system. I'd really like to apply it to the project, but I couldn't due to some compatibility issues with some assets I use. And yeah, maybe also the models, you know, the human models, it's a bit hard to come by for indies, human models. I think Unreal has now a new engine to create human models. Unity is still, well, we have some toughy assets. I don't know, I think that it's still a bit of a problem that, you know. And well, those are all the questions. Thanks to everyone that's watching. I hope you play and enjoy the game that's releasing for the Big Adventure event. And that's it. I hope you see you playing the demo. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Mohammad from TheBAE. TheBAE is an indie game studio based in Pakistan, and I am working as a senior developer for our upcoming title, Lost Winds 2. In the past, we have released an Apple Arcade title called Explodance, which was among the first 52 titles selected for the platform. About Lost Winds 2, it is a puzzle platformer game in which you have to explore different kinds of worlds while following the journey of the twins, which we call in our game as Abby and Ben. The game starts when both our characters, Abby and Ben, are separated from each other, and we have to create a path for them so that they can get together and live in a happy world. Let's talk about our game. Our game is divided into 3 zones, and each zone consists of 11 levels. We also have a plan to add more levels in the future. The levels are quite unique, both artistically and mechanically. At first glance, it seems like a normal platformer level with a mesmerizing view, but at the same time, the level is divided into a grid of multiple blocks. The blocks could be of 2x2, 2x3 or 3x3, depending which level you are playing. We have 2 different zoom levels in our game. In zoom out view, we have to shuffle the blocks back and forth so that the blocks can join together. In zoom in, you can actually see the blocks are connected with each other, and so our characters Abby and Ben can make a way back to the portal. And when they reach at the portal, the level ends. We have also added different interactable puzzle elements, and these elements help our characters to reach at the portal. Our game progression is quite similar with the other games. We have added some magical crystals in our game that are to be collected by the player to unlock further levels in the game. For visual inspiration, Studio Ghibli has been the biggest influence for us. We also looked at the works of Makoto Shinkai and various other games in the similar genre and art style. Our game, Lost Since 2, is scheduled to release this year and will be coming to mobile, PCs and consoles. We are having a lot of fun while developing this game, and we hope you would like it too. Follow us on our social media accounts for the updates, and if you like our game, do wishlist it on Steam. Thank you.
Привет, я основатель проекта Механик 8230. В состав нашей команды в Nodiventro входит 4 человека. Я занимаюсь геймдизайном, моделирую, рисую текстуры, анимирую, пишу сценарий и немного работаю со звуком. 5 лет мы работали с Новаковской Катериной. Она художник и моделер. В середине прошлого года к нам присоединился программист Дима Кива, он же Торт. Он также занимается анимацией и работает со звуком. Также у нас есть композитор из Москвы Александр Жуванов. Есть один проект в заморозке под названием Intruder. Это гонки на мускулкарах с повреждениями. Мы надеемся его закончить. Мы создаем игру, в которую всегда хотели поиграть. Мы скрупулезно прорабатываем каждую мелочь и стараемся достичь максимального разнообразия, без использования ассетов. Каждая локация за счет этого уникальна, и каждый раз вы попадаете в совершенно новое место. Мы также стараемся добавить интересный и в то же время легкий для восприятия сценарий, полный загадок, который будет состоять из 3 эпизодов. Первый эпизод раскрывает Ильгород, город посреди радиационной пустоши на планете под названием Бифростия. Геймплей разбавлен с казуальной составляющей. Прохождение переплетено с различными головоломками, которые по возможности существуют в контексте с происходящим. И, конечно же, на фоне будут звучать приятные ambient саундтреки. Композитор проделал отличную работу. Есть несколько игр, а также фильмов. И, конечно, это Примордия, Машинариум, The Cave, Dead Cyber. Из фильмов «Звездные войны» и «Матрица». Отголоски всего этого вы обязательно найдете в механике. Конечно, это смена движка. То есть в прошлом году было принято решение перейти с Blender Game Engine, к которому мы очень привыкли, на Godot Engine. Шаг, конечно, оправдан, но на тот момент нам это далось очень тяжело. Сложный вопрос. Назову 3. Это Готика, Машинариум и Примордия. На данный момент можно говорить о ПК-версии на Windows и Linux, но мы планируем и портирование на Nintendo Switch, а дальше неизвестно. Наверное, Машинариум 2. Хотелось бы... Тут скорее вопрос, какие игры я хотел бы, чтобы вышли под Linux. Потому что в последнее время даже через Proton не особо машинариум тот же не запускается. Да. Может быть, ремейк Готики. Как уже упоминал, начинали мы с БГЕ и столкнулись с далеко не технической проблемой. Мы не могли найти программиста, который потянул бы проект. Из известных недостатков в БГЕ это отсутствие портирования на различные актуальные платформы. Godot во многих отношениях является прогрессивным современным движком, конечно, со своими недостатками, но наша игра в принципе и не очень-то требовательна, и нам он подошел идеально. Всем удачи!
Hi there, welcome. We're here to introduce our new single-player adventure game, Strange Horticulture. Let's get started with what it's all about.
So Strange Horticulture is this pretty weird, occulty, Papers, Please. It's got Sherlock Holmesy vibe. And the gist of it is you own a shop that sells odd, unusual plants, and they have kind of magical properties.
Yeah, there's elements of exploration, collecting, and then identifying these plants and serving them to your often colourful and eclectic customers.
Yeah, and underneath it all there's this dark mystery that unravels slowly. So like a customer might come to you and give you some snippets of information. You might find a book or an ancient scroll in some dusty library somewhere. And you can kind of influence the events of the game through the customers and your plants.
Yeah, and it's relaxing, it's chilled, it's like reading a book on a rainy day. There's mysterious characters, there's puzzles to solve, and there are strange items that you have to work out what they do.
And most importantly of all, Jono, there's a cat.
Yeah, so let's move on and sort of introduce ourselves. We're Bad Viking. We are two brothers. This is my brother Rob. He is our coder.
And this is my brother John, and he does the artwork for Bad Viking.
I'd say together we've been making games for around 10 years, maybe longer. We're veterans of the Flash game scene, and we're probably most fondly remembered for Bad Eggs Online. We also made an adventure game called Curse the Mushroom King.
And moving on to the next question, John, what were the inspirations behind Strange Horticulture?
Well, we mentioned Papers, Please at the top. We were inspired by that in terms of we wanted to make a game with a sort of single screen layout with less UI and things like that. Games like Cultist Simulator, adventure games of the past, but I think more so we were influenced by things like board games.
Yeah, definitely. Like we really wanted it to have this very tactile feel, everything you can move around on screen and move stuff on your shelves. So we were influenced by games like board games, like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, for example, with its map and kind of puzzle elements, and then the sort of general vibe maybe of a game like Eldritch Horror.
Yeah, and also books. A couple of things to mention: the Voynich manuscript, which is a real-life ancient manuscript with plants, unknown plants, and unknown text that still hasn't been translated, and something called Brereton's Complete Herbal.
Yeah, this book, John.
Oh yeah, this book. Yeah, that we got lots of inspiration from that. That's good. Anyway, what do you think was the most difficult aspect of developing Strange Horticulture?
So it took us quite a while to nail down the initial gameplay. It's quite an odd game. There's not much out there like it. So actually working out that identifying plants itself was going to be the meat of the game, and that is pretty fun. Took quite a while, and then when we worked out that we were going to have a map, that's when it all really sort of came together, and we could have all these interesting tactile puzzles around the map.
Yeah,
it was pretty challenging.
Anyway, we're here for the big adventure event, so I guess we'll finish with sort of discussing some of our favourite adventure games.
Yeah, we grew up playing stuff like Myst, Riven, the Discworld series. John, I still remember when you came home with that, I think it was Discworld 2 actually, that box with the colourful artwork on. I'm sure it has death on there. We love that game.
Also, other point-and-click adventure games like the old LucasArts stuff. More recently, things like Thimbleweed Park gives that big hit of nostalgia we've been looking for a while. And then a game that both of us really enjoyed in the last 10 years and really resonated with us, both in terms of the way it took its concept and executed it. We just thought it was fantastic. It was a game called The Witness, which is just brilliant. Anyway, I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you for joining us and listening to us. Please go check out our demo, Strange Horticulture, coming soon. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Adolfo.
And I am Sol.
We are part of Somber Pixel, the developers behind the story-driven game Night Reverie.
Night Reverie is a puzzle adventure game in which a child must solve the mystery behind the distortion of his house. You'll have to explore puzzle-filled environments and discover strange creatures living in the house as you reach the truth behind of what looks like a bizarre nightmare. The game is currently available on Steam, so make sure to grab it and enjoy a wholesome adventure.
In Somber Pixel, we are really passionate about indie games. We took a lot of inspiration from games we really love in order to create Night Reverie. Games like One Shot and The Last Door were part of our first inspirations in the early design phase of the game, so if you enjoy games like those, make sure to check out Night Reverie.
When we developed Night Reverie, we wanted to make sure that players get a message at the end of their playthrough. We decided to make a game that could stay in the heart and minds of every single player who decided to play it from the beginning to the end. It's the kind of game you experience with your heart.
We began working on Night Reverie on November 2019. It took almost 2 years of development until we finally released it. It has been a great experience to see how day after day our game was taking shape, and we're extremely happy now with the good reception it has been having among the players.
We learned a lot during the development period of the game. The most difficult aspect in the development was to keep the whole team motivated while working online. In the past we were used to hang out as a team, like this, but during pandemic we had to adapt ourselves to a new way of working. We managed to develop all of the game during these hard times, and we're really proud to have achieved this as a team.
We are really excited to share more about our future projects with you pretty soon, so make sure to follow us on social media. You can find us as @SomberPixel in every place.
We hope you have a great time.
Hi, my name is Alag, and I'm the developer of Organs Please, a satirical management sim where you take control of a recycling factory with a twist. It recycles humans, the only resource that's left on the planet after everything else was eaten up. We're surrounded by radioactive deserts, and your task is to build a huge space shuttle called the Ark, so that the last citizens get their chance to survive by going on a journey to a newly discovered planet 42, the only hope for humanity. You have to manage employees, control the production line, and upgrade factory sections. And most importantly, provide factory with the main resource it needs, human bodies. Check incoming visitors and decide who gets to be saved by going to the Ark, and who is to be recycled into the fuel and delicious canned food. But don't worry, even if they are recycled, they still get a Disneyland-like once-in-a-lifetime ride on a conveyor belt. In-game, you have to take orders from Human Survival Committee and manage your relationship with different factions. The totalitarian government, powerful mafia, radical resistance, and fanatic church. It's up to you to decide whom to help, but make one mistake and you will face consequences. We're really excited to present Organs Please as a small indie team from Russia. We're 5 extremely passionate people, and we're putting our blood, sweat, and other body fluids into the production of the game. So we're excited to seeing you play it. the new free demo is available on Steam right now as a part of the big adventure event. Go and check it out. We drew our inspiration for Organs Please from such amazing games as Frostpunk, This Is the Police, Papers, Please, and many others. Those games created by awesome developers made us excited, and with our game we want to bring people unique experience in story and gameplay, but also to have a pure joy of recycling people. We're planning on releasing Organs Please this year, so if you want to follow up, subscribe to our newsletter at organsplease.com. Follow our publisher HeroCraft PC on Twitter for development insights, and wishlist the game so you won't miss it when it releases. And don't forget to check out the demo and share your feedback with us so we can make it even better. We hope you will enjoy being the overseer of our little human recycling factory. Thank you for watching.
Hi, I'm Jonas from Common Colors. We're from Germany and we're currently working on our first full-length adventure game, Prim. Prim is a hand-drawn 2D adventure game, and you play as Death's daughter, trying to escape the realm of the dead against your father's will. At heart, it's a pretty classical point-and-click adventure game, but with modern perks such as HD graphics, a one-click interface, and fast traveling. Imagine Monkey Island meets Tim Burton's art style meets Terry Pratchett. The game is supposed to be released on PC, Mac, and Linux. Of course, it would be amazing to include other platforms as well, but only the future will tell if we'll be able to do that. Let me take you behind the scenes a little bit. We are a pretty small team of 6 people, but we're pretty international as well, coming from countries such as the US, Russia, Poland, and Germany, of course. When we started working on Prim, we were using an engine called Visionary Studio, but we have switched to Unity for a couple of reasons. Let me tell you about the things that are most fun and most challenging. Maybe the biggest challenge so far has been designing and implementing the in-game card game that we want to have in the game, because making a card game is so different from implementing typical adventure game mechanics, and that's a challenge for us. Another hard thing to do is probably kill your darlings, and this is what every game designer hates probably, because if you have a great idea for a scene or a character or a puzzle and it just doesn't fit in with the overall vision of the game, or would make it too long or the scope too big, then you have to leave it out, and that's always a hard thing to do. What's most fun at the moment, for me at least, is writing dialogues and writing characters and writing puzzles. Let's talk about adventure games in general for a little while. If I had to make a top 3 list of all the adventure games I've played, it would probably be Day of the Tentacle, The Curse of Monkey Island, and Technobabylon. But of course there are some adventure games that I'm looking forward to playing myself and that have not been released yet. First and foremost, the amazing pixel art adventure Lucy Dreaming, made by my good friend Tom. And another title that I'm looking forward to is Harold Halibut, because it just looks so brilliant and very cinematic and atmospheric, and I can't wait to get my hands on this one. Alright, thanks for dropping by at my home office. Don't forget to watch all the other videos too. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again. Bye bye.
Hi, I am Puspa. This is?
And I'm Arvin.
And
I'm MT.
we are Pendopo from Indonesia.
And yeah, now we're developing our first game called Rendezvous, and Rendezvous is a 2.5 dimensional cybernoid pixel art adventure game of family, betrayal, and dangerous secrets set against the backdrop of Cyberpunk New Surabaya. It's like 7 of us were active developer, and have we even been involved with other projects in the past?
No, we are not. Rendezvous is our first project as a team.
Talking about Rendezvous, what we're gonna achieve, what we set to achieve with our game is like we want to bring Indonesia or Southeast Asia in general to the world. Like we want to see, want to make like a cyberpunk game or like story in what do you call it, like in the small place, like all the real place of the world that people tend to forget like there's any other region aside from Japan or Europe or North America. And yeah, we want to bring that, we want to bring the culture to the world. What are the games that we are inspired by?
There's a lot of games inspired us, such as like Backbone, Tales of the Neon Sea, The Last Night, and the Chinatown Detective Agency.
Yeah, we are mostly like inspired by The Last Night. The most difficult aspect of creating our game, like what's the most difficult decision to make?
Well, of course, the design. We need to think carefully about it. We have to make sure that we successfully deliver to our player, of course.
Yeah, the art and design, and like the design with like there's other difficult things like the environment design, like you gotta make sure that the perspective are right, so because we are like combined to dimensional to not 3D world. What's our favorite adventure game?
For me, of course, especially Resident Evil.
Yeah. Well, it's not. So my favorite is like I don't know if it's like already retro or not. So it's I got my favorite is Dino Crisis, and the other adventure game I like is Morrowind, and also Digimon World. Yeah, I guess that's my favorite. And what platform will our game exist on?
Currently, we're planning to ship our to Steam and Nintendo.
So, yeah, the question: what's another adventure game that we're excited to play?
There's a lot of games that make us want to play it. For me, there's Chinatown Detective Agency and Replace. Replace.
Yeah.
They have a good for the Replace. They have a good trailer to deliver to us as a player. Like wow, how we amazed with that. We like wow, I want to play this game.
Yeah, for myself, I want to play Space Programmer because that's our it's our country game, and I love the pixel art style of the game and the story also. I love Atma and the other characters too, and of course, and the other game is like intentional. It's cyberpunk game also in like 3D, 2.5 dimensional. I'm not very sure, but I love the art style. And of course, we want to play the last time also. If the game still in depth. And I think that's all the questions also. So, thank you.
So I'm Jeroen Jansen. I'm the managing director.
I'm David. I'm the creative director. I'm
Doing game design, art, and puzzle design, and my job is basically to make sure that the game is fun, that it looks good, and that it's it's something unique you want to play. So
One day, David came up with the idea of the tiles that you see in the game. So the whole world is divided in little tiles, little dioramas that you can turn around.
the thing is, we had a whole bunch of artwork of a nice world, a lot of based out of tiles, and it started looking really nice. And then we were like, after those 3 months, we had like, okay, we just have artwork, but we have no story, so what are we gonna do? And then we met up with Joost van der Kastelen, he's the writer, and he basically fell in love with the art and the world and how it looked, and he immediately saw like a way in to introduce a story there, and that's how we kicked off with the actual game, like where we invented the girl and the story and the concept behind the world, and then it started getting real, and then we just started producing the game for real. So
And then Joost, the writer, is of course working on the project, and then we had a huge help in getting the moods right with our composer, TheBAE.
It all spanned from the first artwork. I had some drawings where I just drew a single tile, and I wanted to make something really simple, something really elegant, where you just focus on one centerpiece. And quickly I discovered that if you kind of duplicate these tiles and shift around layouts, you can create a whole world and then split it up again, which really appealed to me. So, and then we showed the artwork to Joost, and he came up with a story about death and this girl, and it was a young girl. The main character is a young girl. That it's basically like a dollhouse. So every room is built up like you would see a room in a dollhouse. If you have a bedroom, you have a bed and a closet. If you have a kitchen, you have a counter and a fridge. And that's basically the whole thought process behind the design of those tiles. And it's nice that it's presented in a way so the main character can feel at ease, because it's presented to her in like a way of how, in the way she's used to looking at things, or something familiar for her.
Rooms or the places, the bigger they are, because like you start out in her bedroom, and it's 4 of these dioramas, but those four are actually like half of the house if you explore the rest of it. So the better she remembers the place, the bigger it is in her imagination. So the more details she remembers, so the more tiles we used to make that place.
Music is really important in our game. Like it's really really good, composed by TheBAE. Because we had this art, we had this dark story, but it didn't glue together, because a lot of the times if you see the game, like we went to a lot of festivals, like game festivals, and you could see people being drawn to the screen because it looks nice, and then they start reading the text and it doesn't match up, and then they put on the headphones and it's like, ooh, what's going on here? And it's like, oh, and you get sucked into the game immediately. It's totally different when like all the interns that helped us out, coming from Finland, from France, from Iraq,
all over the world.
All over the world, our lovely employees who stood with us when we were losing our minds, and who backed us up and who did a really great job at making something we're really proud of. So thanks everyone.
Publisher Playdigis.
Yeah, of
making
course.
It possible. And not only the publisher, but also like the Flemish Game Fund and like the Dutch Stimuleringsfonds Fund, because they allowed us, they gave us a little bit of money so that we can start on the game and then and not have to starve and do a little bit of work for hire. But they also made it possible, of course.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm Kappa. My full name is Kaspar Hardi Rave, and I am a solo developer working on the point-and-click adventure game The Silent Sky. Now, The Silent Sky is somewhat classical, but not quite. I'm trying to develop something unique in my own way. like everybody else probably, with my own little twists, puzzles and design peculiarities that not everybody will probably like, especially if you are a stubborn traditional adventure game lover who's stuck in those old mechanical parameters or something, or you hate pixel hunting. I love pixel hunting. Well, you can't please everybody, right? The Silent Sky is a lot influenced by the titles like The Broken Sword. Now, not like you should expect someone like George Stobart-alike character searching for Templars or anything, but I want to deliver that kind of quality The Broken Sword had, still has. Also titles like Siberia, where you get this nice and slow paced story with beautiful animations. Story shortly, it's about a boy who goes wandering while searching for his dog in the woods under the silent night sky. But instead of finding his dog, he stumbles upon something more strange, something he is not supposed to find, something out of this world, like a portal. Did I spoil it? I'm doing all that mostly on my own, so there are no other people in my one-person team, but of course I have help from people from different communities, feedback from testers, friends, etc., which is very important to note, because without them I'd be dead. I've never been involved in other projects like this in the past. This is my first one. I know you might think, oh, this guy is gonna fail. I know, okay? But I'm gonna do it with my own style, and as high as I can. That sounded weird. So I mentioned The Broken Sword and Siberia. Those two are high bars for me. Those are also the first point-and-click games that really inspired me and made me a point-and-click adventure fan. I'm setting my bar as high as those. Not sure if I will ever achieve anything like that, but at least my bar is up there. There are so many aspects in this that are difficult, especially being a solo indie game developer, and it's hard to pick just one. But mostly all the hardships I've had were rather emotional to outside world. Other than that, I enjoy almost every aspect of developing a game. One of the hardest decisions I had to make maybe was voiceovers, but I did it. And right now I'm finalizing the voiceovers and I'm super happy what I achieved. I also personally suck at technical stuff too, like coding, scripting, or speaking any other computer language, or anything with numbers and symbols involved. My brain works super good in visual department. That's why I use Visionaire Studio, and it's an engine that takes care of my technical aspects basically. It is a very versatile engine that is designed specifically for point-and-click games. There are almost no hurdles for me to use this engine, because everything I need I can achieve with built-in tools, and its community is very helpful. My hand got used to with its interface very quickly. So, it's a point-and-click based game. Obviously my main platform is PC. Right now my focus is on Windows, but I want to, and hopefully I'm able to, release it also for Mac and Linux in some point later. I guess that's it, folks. Thank you very much. Stay safe, never careful, because adventures are what drive us. And don't forget to check out my game, The Silent Sky. Over and out.
Hi, I'm Marie Vibert.
And I'm Brian Crick.
And together we are
Flopsy Koala,
an independent game studio, and we're here to talk to you about our game, Tinselfly. which is about Robin Aetherspring, who is this young starship engineer who finds that her job exploring the stars isn't like the adventure stories that inspired her to do this. And she's questioning her choices, and she's in this moment in her life when mysterious aliens attack. And it's up to her to find strength in her skills and her community to figure out what these aliens want and why they're here.
Okay, so on to the questions. Who's on the team? So besides the aforementioned myself and Marie, we've got a few contractors working on the project. So we've got Brian Freeland doing music composition, Kate Triantafello is doing 2D art and concept art, and we've got Adam Keating doing some additional modeling for the game.
So why does TensorFly have a 1920s retro future look to it?
The story takes place over the course of several decades. It's a fairly expensive story. So we wanted to get this feeling that like time was passing in a way that was very understandable to the audience. So instead of like, since it's science fiction, you know, you could easily have like, here's some people in some sci-fi jumpsuits and some random sci-fi backgrounds, and then later on here's some people in different sci-fi outfits and different sci-fi backgrounds, and that just wouldn't feel very immediate. So we wanted something that was just like, oh hey, this is the 1920s, oh this is the 1880s, this must be a flashback, stuff like that, just to keep it very readable.
And we had a lot of fun working with the costuming and the details in the background. Spending lots of time sending each other pictures like, ooh, look at this toaster oven from the 1930s, or ooh, look at this sleeve button from the 1910s. So that was a lot of fun for us. Now, what are the inspirations for TensorFly? And one of the inspirations for me was living in the Rust Belt and the idea of a post-industrial town and the way that the economy of an area will affect the people there. So as we jump back and forward in Robin's life, we also see changes in the city where she's living. This Coralissa, this beautiful 1920s Paris on a platter that's orbiting a gas giant. And we see the city go from being a booming spaceship producing town to losing its industry to the new teleportation portal technology.
Great. After they're done playing, what do you want players to come back with?
A sense of optimism and hope, and that individuals can band together and make the world better in small, quiet ways.
Okay. For myself, I want just whatever the story is, I want them to feel immersed in it and feel a sense of immediacy of being inside the story as it is happening.
And the environments really do that. Brian does an amazing job with the environments. What is our release date? Scary question.
Okay, hopefully end of 2022. That's what we're shooting for. Crossing fingers, knocking on wood, all that fun stuff.
So, yes, thank you for listening. Please try our demo and enjoy the other games at the Big Adventure event. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hello guys and gals, my name is Hernan Lopez. I am producer and game designer at TheBAE Games, and I'm here to talk about our latest game, Unusual Findings, which is a point-and-click adventure games about three friends growing up, the 80s, and of course killer aliens from outer space. The game has elements similar to Monkey Island 3, where you have a token, an action token, where you can like talk, grab, and see different stuff. And also has unique elements like a 3-man party that acts like a unit. So it's not like you have to select one of the characters to try to do something, but they are going to like interact with each other and try to do stuff. And also something cool that we add is that depending on how you interact with each of these characters, their behavior is going to change, and that is going to change the puzzles, and that is going to change the outcome of the dialogues, and that's going to change the plot of the game. And that's something that it's
It's really, really cool because you can play multiple times and unlock different puzzles and different mini games and ways to solve stuff and endings, and that's like really, really cool. The game, it's all about the 80s. It draws the narrative elements of movies like The Goonies, Monster Squad, Battery is Not Included, They Live, Predator, Terminator. I mean, so much cool movie pop culture you're going to see on the game. In fact, we have inside the game a really, really cool 80s music. Not only new retro wave music that we have, that we made for the game, but also you're going to find music for Dead or Alive, the 80s synthwave kings. And you're going to be able to listen. You spin me around like a record inside the game, among other cool songs there. If you're a streamer, don't worry, there is a streamer mode, so you don't have to mute the game ever. And also, the game, since it's all about the 80s, we have pixel art, but the pixel art with some enhanced things like lighting and shadow and also fog and stuff like that. It's fully voiced. It's going to be in 10 languages, I guess, and it's going to be ready for almost every platform. It's going to be released first on PC, then it's going to be released on consoles. You can check a demo right now and see for yourself how the game feels, how the kids interact with each other, how jokes works, and how the games go. About us, well, we are Epic Llama Games. The core team is made by Fabian Perugia, which is the main developer, and it's programming everything and making that this game actually happens. And it's just not just a bunch of graphics and words, and also do some sound editing. And also Juan Arfinetti, which is the guy who make most of the graphic here and all the cool animations that you're going to see, the fighting and all that kind of effect. And me, who is the guy who's writing some stuff and designing some of the puzzles that you're going to see. We have worked together in the past. We make Darkestville Castle, that you can also check the demo or see the game, the full game, who is also on Steam. So I think that's it. Hope to see you again and enjoy Unusual Findings. Try the demo. Do it. Try the demo.
Hello, my name is Andrew Golding and I'm the director of Brawsome, which is just a fancy way of saying I do all the things except art and music. Brawsome's last two games were Jolly Rover and MacGuffin's Curse, released way back in 2010 and 2012. So after a long break, I'm happy to announce that Brawsome's next game, Warp Frontier, was released in September 2021 after 3 years of part-time development by an entirely remote team, mostly during the pandemic, so none of us have actually been in the same room together during the entire development. The main collaborators on the game include the fine artist Matt Martin and the equally fine musician Thomas Regan. Warp Frontier is an Aussie sci-fi cop drama set in the year 2215 around humanity's newest extrasolar colony. You play as Vincent Cassini, a captain in the Cetus Orbital Police. While patrolling the slums of Cetus's asteroid ring, he stumbles across a lead in a war crime that resulted in the mysterious disappearances of thousands of Cedans, including his wife and best friend. Captain Cassini and his robot partner Mac must ally with morally questionable characters to stop an old enemy before their crimes are erased forever. Warp Frontier is a 2D point-and-click adventure inspired by one of my favourite adventures, The Dig, and also by The Expanse and the writings of Ray Kurzweil and Alistair Reynolds. In classic point-and-click adventure fashion, players solve puzzles using a combination of inventory and interactions with the environment, and navigate branching narratives in order to progress via several different pathways to the story's conclusion. What this means is that certain interactions and dialogue choices can fundamentally change the course of the game. The lives of key characters and thousands of innocent civilians will be affected by the choices you make, resulting in around 16 permutations of outcome in the concluding scene. What makes Warp Frontier stand out is its strong Australian voice cast, featuring the talents of Kevin Powell, Amy Smith and Angela Tran. The writing has a particularly Australian slant, and the setting also parallels Australia, being a new and isolated colony made up of people from diverse backgrounds united under a common identity. I wanted to create a game that felt like a real Australian experience, rather than a stereotypical Australian experience. Other themes I explore in this game are how technology affects our humanity. At what point do we stop being human? How can we quantify consciousness or a soul? And what does death mean when we can choose to ignore it? For Warp Frontier, I wanted to make a serious 2D game that targeted an HD resolution. So the backgrounds are 3D renders with 2D paintovers, and the characters are high resolution with 2D skeletal animation. The scenes are put together in 3D, and also benefit from 3D particle effects, lighting and audio. In this way, I'm hoping to put together the best of 2D and 3D. Players can expect to run through the game in about 6 to 8 hours, and you'll probably need at least 3 playthroughs in order to experience the bulk of the content. Warp Frontier released in September for Nintendo Switch and on Steam and GOG for Windows, Mac and Linux. Please go check it out.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Pizza, a CEO founder for Happy Studio. We're gonna tell you about our game, which is being produced in a small studio of 5 people. This game released some of the culture and history of Indonesia that was once mixed with the Netherlands. This game with the horror genre, mystery and survival tells the story of a small family of these Camdens, nobles or native or non-native in the remote village called Katyy. Strange events start in 1016. The resident in the village suddenly disappears instantly out of his cursed village. Find the solution, develop the intelligence of his mind at the age of 10 years old, and reveal what the mystery is. What happens in that situation is a thing to be solved through a puzzle. The player must also be able to pass through the obstacle of mythological creatures in his village. From Indonesian creatures or cause that room, it is hoped that this game can introduce mystical things existing in Indonesia. In addition, traditional musical instruments are featured in the game as a challenge to pass the next step. It is hoped that you will get to know some Indonesian musical instruments, listen to their distinct type of voice, and how to play. This game is available on the game platform named is Steam. With the game's release is expected in a few months in 2022. Other games were inspirations for you all. Previously, we were inspired by Indonesian games that is spread out among The Sleep and Little Nightmare. Horror them game. We live from the story that started in Indonesia. Then the story of this game is inspired by the story of traditional and non-native marriage that have happened and the cost that room in Indonesia, as well as the name and background of the story, which is a lift from a story in the city of Batam.